Welcome to the second lecture of our association, Sapere Aude, Dare to Know. My name is Adrian, as you can see here. Just a reminder, our association is a humanist association based in Stockholm that is trying to promote the use of reason, critical thinking, and also promote the knowledge on everything that has to do with art, philosophy, history. So in this sense, we are going to start a series today of presentations, hopefully, that is going to be called the Poetic Reason Series. And this first installment is called The Sacred and the Profane. So the Poetic Reason Series is based on this book right here. This is my book. I wrote it during 2020, and I remember telling you in New Year's Eve that in 2020 I wanted to write a book about the inception of the idea of God, and that's what I did. You remember? Also, I was 28, and I remember reading that Nietzsche had published his first major work before he was 28, or he was 28, and I was like, no, I'm going to do it. It's like, he cannot get ahead of me, you know? And that's what I tried to do, and I wrote this book during a whole year. It was also the pandemic, which was a good time to also to focus and think, yes. Sometimes bad things beget very beautiful things as well. Yeah, that's what we have to think about life. Is that maybe the pandemic was a horrible thing, but some people made the best out of it. Yes, so I tried my best. We were at home. We couldn't go to Spain, and I spent most of the time writing and reading, and that's how we did it. Yes, so. I just wanted to say also that about writing a book. Writing a book is a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. Every day you have to be consistent. Yes, and I think writing a book. It's a beautiful way to put your thoughts in words, and putting your thoughts in words. It requires the most amount of energy that you may use, because it's truly, written thought is divine, I would say. Yeah. So I put a lot of care into writing this book. We will try to discuss what this book is about in this series of lectures, and I hope that you will enjoy it. Yes. The title is The Poetic Reason. Subtitle is Enquiry into the Divine. So what are we going to try to explain in this book? Well, in this book, I tried to imagine why humanity came up with the answers of God, for example, of the divine, to some of the most fundamental questions. Like, for example, where do we come from? Yeah? Do I have a purpose? Now, humanity throughout history, in many different locations around the world, they all have a constant idea, which is the idea of God or the divine. Yes. So this is a very interesting topic, and the way I have tried to approach it is, as the title of the book says, is with poetry and reason. Yeah, and at first you might think, but this seems like an oxymoron. It looks like an oxymoron. How can you put together poetry and reason? Because reason is the tool that we use to understand the world methodically. Yes, it's what gave us science and mathematics, but poetry is more about the heart. Yeah, it's about feeling. Yeah, so everything that reason judges, you know, and reprives, poetry feels. Yes, so what is the relationship between these two elements? And as we will see, I think that the history of religion has a lot to do with our feeling as well, because I have read many books, maybe you as well, for example, from well-known atheists. Yeah? And what I think that they lack is a lot of feeling. Yes, they look at the facts about religion, and they decompose religion into facts, and they say, well, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. But I lack a bit of feeling. It's like, where is the feeling? Because human essence is not only reason, it's also feeling. Yes? Otherwise, we wouldn't have these sort of stories, as I will try to explain. Yes? So in this book, we will use science, we will use philosophy, we will use history and art to try to explain mostly the inception of the idea of God and how it evolved and it grew like a tree into many different ideas, and how this affected, mostly we will focus on Western Europe, yeah, so the West. I will not talk about so much about Oriental religions, yes. So here you see the painting with Adam and Eve, yeah, the creation of the world, and here they are being expelled from paradise, yes. So one of the things that I'm going to try to make clear is that we have had scientific method for 500 years, but not before, yes. So it's very easy to go and read these stories and dismiss them as bollocks, yeah, with the tools that we have now. But we need to try to think like the people who wrote these stories, which didn't have the scientific method, which couldn't probe into the nature of reality, yes. So we shall try to use a lot of symbolism and a lot of literature to try to understand what they're telling us, yes. And so the structure of this series, here I have another picture from God creating the sun and the moon. This series is going to be structured like the cycle of the day, yes. So we're going to start with dawn, and then we're going to move to midday, and then the evening, and then the night, and we will try to make allegories, yeah, parallelisms between history in the West and how the idea of God evolved. Because of course, when you think about religion, you not only think about Adam and Eve, you also think about everything that happened in the West during the Dark Ages, right? And you think about the intolerance of those who are fanatics of religion. Yeah? So religion has many different sides. It's not all black and white. And what I will try to explain in this series is how religion, right, moved from a bright concept idea in humanity into the dark depths of the night, yeah, and how we came up from the night as well, because we eventually came up from the Middle Ages. Yeah? How did we do it? In this inquisitive journey, we will meet this girl right here. She's called Alice. Alice is a girl that lives in in a place with no time, in a place with no space, but she will try to guide us in this road. Yes, you shall see what I mean later. So Alice represents our beginnings, yes, our beginnings as a species. This is why I chose a little girl, because what is one of the most fundamental traits of children? What would you say? When you what?
Openness.
Openness, exactly. Curiosity, right? Innocence, yes. Ingenuity, I would say. It's the most important thing. So the symbolism here is that humanity started thinking about the divine the same as a child would ask, how does the sun rise and set? You know, so this is the kind of ingenuity that I think led humanity to create such ideas. Yes, it's a sort of curiosity unencumbered by wisdom. Yeah, so she is not wise, but she's curious, and she tries to explain what's going on. So I believe that this is how humanity did it. Yeah, Alice. She will serve us to ground concepts. Yeah. So when we speak about difficult ideas, we shall try to look at what Alice thinks in her head and how she tries to explain, for example, why do people have to die, you know, and whether people come back from the dead or not. We shall try to think like a kid, actually. And then from this seed, we shall try to understand how religion did it, quote unquote, yeah? How religion tried to explain all of these very important questions, yes? So even if we are wrong in our explanations, we will try to extract knowledge from the examinations that we do, yeah? And so we begin, as I said, in this cycle right here. We begin at dawn, yes? And this is going to be the focus of this lecture. I have called it the dawn of the cosmic inquiry. By the way, all of these topics we follow them in the book. Yeah. So this is the first chapter, actually, the dawn of the cosmic inquiry. And here I will use art as much as possible because I think art, pictures are worth more than 1,000 words. Yes. So here, for example, I have tried to imagine how Alice, this girl that we have met, yeah, wakes up in some place, yeah, in some point in time. It doesn't really matter. Yes, and we begin our story, yes, our story of religion, the same way we fall in love. And how is it? It's just with a first gaze. We look at the person and we maybe fall in love. It's the same thing here. We have a first gaze. Alice wakes up and then she sees the world. Yes. She imagined that she was asleep for a very long time. She sees the world, and the first thing that she does is, okay, I see light. So the first thing that I do is I look at the sun, and I see this very big ball of fire, right, warming me, and that watches over the world. Yes, that is the first thing that she sees. And then she also realizes, of course, that the sun is very far away, and that she cannot reach the sun. So there are two different worlds. It's the world that is up there and the world that is here. Yes, the world that she can touch. Yes. Another thing that she notices as a child that has no scientific method, it's just curiosity. Another thing that she notices is that the world is flat. Of course, the world is flat. Yes. Everywhere she looks, she sees the horizon and the sky, and it looks like a circle. There is no privileged direction. So, of course, the world is flat. Yes, it couldn't be otherwise. It couldn't be a globe. There's no way we could understand that it is a globe. Yes. So, when she looks at the sun and the flat world, then she of course thinks that the sun is moving in a dome. Yeah, in a dome, because there is no privileged direction, and then the sun moves in a circle, in a dome. Yes. So the day goes on. She woke up in the morning. The day goes on, and she sees the sun move. Yes. So this sun, what she realizes that it brings her safety. It's warm, But another question that she may ask herself is, well, why does it move? Why does the sun have to move at all? Yes. I mean, here we're questioning everything. So why does the sun have to move at all? Yes. And she observes that the wind moves the leaves of the trees, right? So she thinks, well, maybe it's the wind blowing the sun. Yes. That's one explanation. Or she also thinks that, okay, when I move a stone here and there, it's me doing it. So maybe someone is moving the sun. Yes. Maybe not only the wind, but someone is moving the sun. Who is this person? Yes. Not only that, but during the day, she also comes across with raw displays of power, like thunder and lightning, that completely turn her head around, because it was day, and now suddenly I see this lightning and thunder coming from where? From the sky as well. Yeah. So this sky thing can be as welcoming as threatening as well, right? And it may have something to do with the power that we were talking about, right? So the day goes on in this imaginary day that we're talking about, and we see that the sun starts coming down. Yes, and here we have the Angelus, beautiful painting. What we see now is that she can look into the sun actually now, because the sun is so low that it's starting to turn red. Yes, so obviously what she thinks is, okay, the sun is losing its power. So what's going on? Is the sun okay? Right? And actually, what's going on with the sun exactly? It's not as warm. Yeah, so I'm starting to feel a bit chilly. Yes, I don't know if Alice likes this feeling. Yes. It's a bit of a feeling of insecurity, actually. Can you think of another painting at sunset which triggers insecurity in us, or is a display of despair? Can you think of a painting from a Norwegian painter? What is it? It's the same thing, don't you think? It's sunset. I'm getting cold, despair, insecurity. Yes, it's Munch, the scream. So I think he was onto something, right, also? I mean, there is this innate fear in us that we can talk about where it comes from, whether it is evolutionary biology, evolutionary psychology, it doesn't matter, it's here in us, yes. When it gets dark, it's not too, we don't enjoy it too much, yeah? So are we onto something here? Now, remember, Alice woke up, then it was midday, she started seeing the world, then it was the afterglow of the evening, and then suddenly it turns into night, yes. And what happens in the night? The night is cold, it can get dangerous, but it's also majestic, yes? Because we see the stars. And here we hit a very interesting point, yeah? You will see. The sun has disappeared, so whatever power was there is no longer there. Maybe it's underground, actually, because we said that we live in a flat world. There was a dome, so maybe it's underground, yes. And then the moon rises also, as you can see here in Bangkok, as a torch, yeah, that illuminates the world during the night. But we see something very interesting as well, which are small dots of light start to appear in this night, yes? And they seem to form patterns, yes? And in all civilizations, I mean, we have looked at the stars and we have tried to draw patterns in them, yeah? Also, as we have talked about, the sun was moving from east to west, yeah? And then we can see that the stars are actually moving in the same direction, and the stars that are closest to the south direction move slower than the stars that are directly overhead. And this is another confirmation that we live under a dome, yes? So our initial hypothesis is confirmed that there is actually a crystal dome on top of us, yes? But not only that, I mean, imagine now that several days pass by, several weeks, you know, and then the stars suddenly acquire a whole new meaning, which is that they predict the coming of the seasons. Depending on the seasons where we are, we see some of this constellation or others, yeah? For example, one of the very famous examples is that Scorpius in the northern hemisphere appears only in the summer. Yes, and Orion is not there. And then in the winter is completely different. It's only, or we can only see Orion and not Scorpius. And then we invent all of these myths, stories about why this is. And you can start to see that the stars actually have divination powers, yeah? Divination, and it's not a coincidence that we say that they have divination powers, because the divine is the same as divination, right? It's to know what's going to happen in the future. So here we have one of the first explanations for the divine is the power of divination, yes? Like the stars, yes? So knowing the passing of the seasons is very useful, of course, because we know when to plant and when to get our food and when to prepare for the winter, yes? So it's extremely important to know how this works. And then in the end, you remember we were in the night, and then Alice feels relieved because the sun is coming up again from the same place where it rose, and Aurora is coming to us, yeah? And here I have one of the verses from the Aeneid, yeah? Here we have Aurora, yes, dressed like this, in these colors. You have the color purple, right, the color orange, and then after that comes the sun, yes? She leaves her saffron bed and scattering fresh daylight over the earth. So Alice feels relieved that this is happening again, yeah? The night is over. So, now that we have talked about this hypothetical day, yeah, in a nowhere's land. I want to try to formalize these thoughts a little bit, yeah, everything we have talked about. And so we start to talking about the name of this lecture, which is The Sacred and the Profane. The Sacred and the Profane. It's a book, actually. Maybe you know? Okay, you need to read this book. It's a book by a historian of religion. He was called Mircea Eliade, and his knowledge is immense. He's a bit Jungian also. I mean, he was influenced by Carl Jung. And in this book, he tries to explains what I will try to go through in this lecture, yes? So we're going to try to explain that there are these two worlds, the sacred and the profane. As Alice said when she woke up, I see the sun there far away, yes? That would be the sacred, not the sun itself, not the thunder itself, but the power that they represent, something mysterious, yes? And then the profane is what I can touch, yeah? But the interesting thing is that these two worlds are not separated by adiabatic compartments. Is that there is a flow, yes? They can always interact with each other, and that's where the interesting part comes in, right? That's where religion comes in. It's when we interact with the sacred, yes? And so in order to try to explain this, the evolution of how we started building this huge tower that is religion, right? There are two ways of looking into this. I am going to try to argue that the story of the divine, yes, the story of the sacred, plays out like a Beethoven symphony and not like a Mozart symphony. And what do I mean by this? Is that Mozart, if you ever listen to Mozart, one of his symphonies, one of his piano concertos, for example, it doesn't really matter. His genius is there from the beginning, yeah? Like, everything about Mozart is melody. It's everything is there and needs to be there, you know, but he has a raw display of creativity, scales going up and down, yes? And Beethoven is completely the opposite. Beethoven is a composer that was not excellent at any single thing. He was not excellent at melody, he was not excellent at harmony, but what made Beethoven divine actually was the form, everything put together, yeah? So for example, in his 7th symphony, he starts very, very slow with just one note, but then it builds to a huge torrent of emotions, yeah? So what I'm going to try to argue is that the story of the divine builds up slowly, step by step, just like a Beethoven symphony, and not like Mozart all at the same time. Of course, yes, because ideas take time to settle, and they interact with other ideas, right? So here, what I have just said, we can listen to a sample here from Mozart and Beethoven, so that you see. Let's see if it works. You all know this, yeah? So from the very beginning, you have the melody, and that's it. It sets the theme, yeah? And you have all these... You have all this chromaticism, yeah, going up and down. But then if you listen to Beethoven, he's much more humble, yeah? So this is the 7th symphony. One note. One note. But what happens is that he starts building this one note, builds the harmony. And then in the end, it becomes this huge movement in the 7th symphony that is so famous, yes? It's just one note, you see, repeating all the time. Two different styles. And both were geniuses, yes? But I argue that the story of the divine is more like Beethoven, not like Mozart, yes? So we talked about some of that the divine tried to answer some of the most fundamental questions of humanity, yes? I am going to try to summarize a few of them, yeah? We're going to have 4 blocks of questions, yeah? So for example, a beginning. This is one of the most fundamental questions of humanity. It's like, where do I come from? Yes? And then I'm going to quote Carl Sagan on this. This is Carl Sagan, by the way. For those of you who do not know, he was a physicist. He was very famous for being in charge of the Voyager program in the 1980s that sent the spacecrafts to the outer planets of the solar system. Yes, he was also in this TV series Cosmos. Yes, well, one of the heroes of mine. What Carl Sagan said in this very episode with an apple pie in front of him is that if you wish to make an apple pie, you must first invent the universe. It sounds ridiculous, but it's not. You need to have a universe, yes, in order to have an apple pie. If you want an apple pie, you need to have a universe there. So if we want to have answers for ourselves, we need to create our own universe, yes, and then we need to try to explain the universe, yeah. Because an empty canvas is just that. It's an empty canvas. There is nothing, yes? So we need to start painting it. And the question, where do we come from, is a very recurring one that has been answered in many different ways, but they share commonalities. And I hope that in the next episodes of this series of the Poetic Reason, we start exploring them, yeah? Like, for example, the Greek cosmogony, yeah? They call this cosmogony, it's the origin of the cosmos, yes? How it relates to the Babylonian cosmology, and how the Babylonian cosmogony actually is very similar to the Genesis. As we will see, there are ideas underneath these stories that are very common, and we shall try to investigate why, yes? So here we have, for example, God creating Adam, yeah, and Michelangelo, yeah? But I don't know if I've talked about this, but you see that Michelangelo is sending us a message here, yes? You see it very clearly, yeah? It's the brain, it's reason, yes? He's trying to say, well, reason, yes, we understand that it's God, but actually I have dissected several bodies and I've seen the brain. Here is a brain for you, yes? Even if you don't want to see it, this is my idea, yeah? That actually reason comes from this brain right here, yeah? And by the way, this is in the Sistine Chapel, yeah, in Rome, not the 16 Chapel. Yeah, I hear people saying 16 Chapel. It's 16 from the Pope Sixtus. Yeah, Sixtus. So this is one of the questions, right? It was where do we come from? Second question that we have, I mean, if we want to create this universe where we will have an apple pie, right, is that we need to create a point of reference also, because if we want meaning of any sort, then we need to relate ourselves to something, yes? If we don't have a point of reference, then it's the same as a blank canvas, yeah? What do we relate ourselves to, yes? So here I have some so, differential geometry here, but it's fine. And the only thing that I want to show, this is a metric, for example, is some sort of ruler that we have, yeah, in order to measure distances, no matter the geometry that we have. Actually very interesting. So we need to define a center of our existence, yeah, a meaningful center of our existence. And then we need to define a ruler which to make these measurements, yes? Do you think that this center will be arbitrary or not? Actually, I'm anticipating myself, but you will see. What kind of place in the world, actual world, can you imagine without a point of reference? It's like a place where there is nothing at all. If I show you this picture, for example, the sea. What do you think about the sea? Have you ever been in the middle of the sea and thought to yourself, oh, maybe something happens to me, that's it. No one will remember me because I'm being swallowed by thousands of meters of water, yes? That is the same as a blank canvas, yes? It's exactly the same. There is no point of reference. And how does that make us feel? That makes us feel nervous inside, right? We want to get out of here. It doesn't have a shape, nothing. It's actually beautiful. This picture is beautiful, right? But with a point of terror. And I don't want to get ahead of myself either, again, but there's a concept in philosophy that we call the sublime, in aesthetics, the sublime, that is very much this. It's a beauty with a point of terror, yes? If I would be swallowed by this huge ocean, No one would remember me, as I said. No one would notice. And what is this but what the Greeks call the chaos, yeah? The chaos, as Ovid here mentions in the Metamorphoses. He says, at first chaos, a rude and undigested mass, nothing more than inert weight and the discordant atoms of things, not harmonizing, heaping together in one spot. This is the same voidless, shapeless beginning that the Bible mentions. The Bible, the first verses of the Bible is that in the Genesis, it's that the Spirit of God is flying over the waters. Yes. Why water? I want to ask, yes. Why water? What is the symbolism of water as a beginning of the universe? It's because it's shapeless. You can pour it in whatever. Here, I can pour it here. It will adapt to this base. Yes. I can pour it wherever. It will adapt. The form will, but it doesn't have any form of itself. So it's a very, very powerful metaphor to say that the world in the beginning was water, because it is. It is scary, yeah, to be here. And then if you think about it in the book of Genesis as well, what happens, what does God send to the earth when he wants to wipe out all of humanity but one family whose father is Noah? Yeah? What does he do? He makes a lot of rain and then sinks everything into the water, yes? The same water with which the world started. Start to see the point here. And what do we do when we baptize children? Well, nowadays we just pour a little bit of water over them, yeah. But before, you actually sank people into the river, for example, like Jesus, yeah, and John the Baptist. He goes into the Jordan River and comes up. Why? Because these are all ideas of regeneration, that we come from chaos and then we create the cosmos, yeah? We create order in chaos. We have a point of reference, we have a creation point, yes? And we see this over and over and over again throughout many different cultures, yes? And we will see in the Babylonian cosmogony, yes? Also, you remember when we talked about the dome that Alice mentioned, that we live under, yeah? Well, we also have stories relating to the dome, yeah? And we also said that we live in a flat world, yeah? And here we have Yggdrasil, the tree of life, for the Norse cosmogony, yes? So we don't live in any kind of world. We live in the middle world, yes? In the middle world. Why? Because there is something up there, as we clearly see, and then we see underneath there is something else also, yeah? Maybe more dark, because there is not the light of the sun, so maybe it has something to do with death, yes? Because the corpses rot and then go down, yes? So we see that we have found a point of reference, like we live in the middle world and we came up from an expanse of waters, yes? But then, now that we have argued that we created cosmos from chaos, yeah? Then we need to try to explain what are the nature of the forces that run the universe if we want to understand our own meaning, yes? Like, what are the natures? What are the interactions between these seemingly two forces of the universe, right? Here we have Marduk from the Babylonian gods, yes, the Babylonian pantheon, and here we have Apsu. Apsu was the primordial demon, yes, that inhabited the waters of chaos in the beginning, yes. And then Marduk comes in and kills Apsu, yes, essentially telling us that he gave us meaning. He gave us the meaning that we seek. We rose from the waters, yes. So chaos and order, as we shall see in these mythologies, they always fight with each other, yes? Yes.
About this.
Yeah.
Is this the same thinking that, like, the ancient Greeks had with Zeus killing the Titans?
Absolutely. You're talking about the
Titanomachy.
Yeah? The Titanomachy, actually. Not only the Titans, I would say, but also think about the story of Zeus himself. For example, in the beginning you have you have chaos, and then you see Gaia. Yeah, Gaia comes out, and then Uranus. Yeah, the first one, the first of the primordial beings is Uranus, who is the sky. Yes, Then Uranus has a son, which is Saturn, yes? And what does Saturn do? He devours his sons. You can see a painting by Goya that is very famous. He's devouring his sons, yes? What is this? It's just chaos trying to come back, you know? There has been a creation, but Saturn is literally swallowing his creation. And what does Zeus do? He basically kills Saturn. So that's the same story. And then he has different encounters, right, with the Titans, yeah, the brothers and sisters of his father, let's say. That is always chaos trying to overcome cosmos, yeah? Chaos trying to overcome the creation, yes. I will say, maybe I can say it now, but these ideas, yes, it relates to the question that I'm trying to talk about here, is what is the nature of the forces that run the universe? It includes ourselves, yes, ourselves. Because you can equate chaos not only to a metaphysical explanation for the origin of the universe, but chaos is also depression, is also a false sense of belonging, for example. We feel chaos inside of us, yes. And these representations here not only try to explain how the world was created, but also how we ourselves function. And this is why in the beginning I was saying that I think that these books that said that these ideas were just dumb, how could people think about this? Well, it's not that simple, you know, because here we're trying to comprehend our own minds. And of course we come up with beautiful stories that have a lot of what? Have a lot of poetry in them. Because this is poetry, it's just pure poetry. It's stories that we would tell to our kids to go to sleep, yes? But instead of telling our kids these stories, we told them to ourselves. And that is what I'm trying to understand here, yes? Another example, for example, something that I believe is beautiful, related to what we were mentioning now, Cupid. You have here Cupid, yeah, and here is Dido and Aeneas. Dido and Aeneas, I mean, it's related to the Aeneid, yeah, one of the most important book that Virgil wrote in verse, yes. These two, Dido is very much in love with Aeneas, but Aeneas doesn't correspond her, yes. So in the end, she sets herself on fire as Aeneas leaves the coast of Carthage. Yeah, love, one of the most important things of human essence. Why is it represented with a kid that has arrows? Yes, I would like to think that it's because it's very similar to. It's when we say in English that we are in love with someone, we actually say that we fall in love, yes? And I think this is a beautiful expression. We fall in love with someone, which means that it gives a sense that we're walking, yes? But then we fall in love like this. We fall in love. And I think there is a great deal of truth in this, because you don't usually wonder, oh, I think maybe I'm a little bit in love with this person. No, you know or you don't know. Yeah? You say, I'm in love or I'm not in love. So falling in love, just like missing the last step in your stairs, yeah, falling in love, is the same as being hit by an arrow. Yeah, it hits you and you say, oh, no, I think I'm in love with this person. Yes. So I believe these are some of the beautiful connotations, yes, that we have in our mythologies. Yeah. Then we also have another of these fundamental questions of humanity. You remember the first one was how was the world created? Another was the point of reference. The third one, how does the world work and how do ourselves work? And then if we say that there is a sacred and there is a profane, yeah, how do we connect with these beings that dwell in this dome, yes, that we talked about? The stars, the sun, whatever they represent, how can I connect with them? Legitimate question, I would say. Well, here I have two examples of gates to the divine, yes. First one is a mountain. It's just a mountain. Yeah? I mean, really, really, really simply. If you want to reach the sun, the first thing that you can do is you can try to climb a mountain. Yes? And then you will get better signal from this mountain, no? Better divine signal, yeah? So mountains have very, very special meanings in religion and mythology. Like, for example, Moses goes up Mount Sinai and he receives the Ten Commandments from God. And God chooses a mountain, right? Because it's closer to him, yes? Churches and other gates, churches, for example, they rise up into the heaven, right? And then you have other instances of gates to the divine, which are like literal gates, yeah? So when we talked about the center of the universe, when we need a point of reference for our existence, what we ended up doing is we started bringing this point of reference, this center of the universe, to us, because that's what we do as human beings. And if not, you can try to think, when you have a kid, or when you meet your wife for the first time, it feels like time starts in that moment, yeah? When you go to a restaurant and you have the first date, that's like, it feels like the beginning of time, yes? So we did exactly the same. We try to bring the center of the universe to us, and in order to get into the center of the universe, of course, it's not that easy. We need to go through a gate, and then we enter another space. We leave the profane, that which we can touch, we enter the gate, and then we are here in the divine. And we have all of these magnificent churches, mosques, temples of all kinds. Why? Because they represent the center of the universe. That point where, just the same as being at the top of this mountain, instead of having to climb to the top of this mountain, we just have to go through a gate and we enter this new space. Yes. And then, for example, here in Prague, they did the two things. They had a mountain and they built a church on top of it. So, double effect, yes? It's St. Vitus Cathedral, by the way. We were there last year. Fantastic. If you haven't been there, I would recommend totally. It's a Gothic, beautiful cathedral, yes? So, as I said again, this is like the center of the world, yes? But the center of the world not only needs to be on top of a mountain, yes? It also can be underneath the earth. Like, for example, here you have Apollo and Bacchus, yeah? Two antagonistic figures. Apollo, the god of reason, the sun, yes? Why is he the god of reason as well? Because you can imagine that the sun is at a distance, right? So when we use reason, we think, we do not touch. Yeah? So it makes sense that the god of reason is the god of light. It illuminates the way. It illuminates thought. Yes. Apollo gave his commandments to the Pythia. Yeah? She was a sorceress in Delphi, in the sorceress of Delphi. Yeah, and what she did was she went down some stairs there in Greece, and then we think that she took in some air, yeah, that was some vapors, yeah, and then she got inspired and started reciting whatever Apollo had told her. Yes, so the sorceress of Delphi was at the center of the world, yeah, for those people. And yeah, instead of being a mountain, yeah, it was an imagination. You can think it's like a woman, yeah, that you go in, yeah, and then you receive your knowledge there. Dionysus, for example, and on the other side is completely the opposite, yeah. Dionysus is the god of wine, as you can see there. It's not the god of reason at all. It's the god of feeling, yeah, emotion, yes. And he is also very important for us because we cannot imagine our existence only using reason, as I said, and now I'm closing the circle. If this is reason, poetry, feeling, yeah. There is a play by Euripides, yes, one of the main playwriters in ancient Greece, yes, and it's called the Bacchae, yeah, and the Bacchae are the girls that are always following Dionysus, yes, and when they get into this city of Thebes, the king there doesn't let them come in. It's like, no, 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 I don't want you in. You're gonna destroy everything. Like here we have order, law and order. And Bacchus, yes, he takes revenge, and he basically gets into the city, and then the very king starts seeing these orgies that are taking place right outside of the city, and he's curious about it, yeah, about all of this madness that this god is bringing in. So in the end, the king goes and sees all of these girls that are coming with Dionysus, and then the girls themselves rip him apart, basically, yes, and he dies there. That's the end of the play, yes. But what is it trying to tell us? It's trying to tell us that we cannot dismiss this side of us, yes. That just like we have reason, we also have feeling and the need for everything that Bacchus represents, yeah. Who developed this? Who examined this in great detail and with very beautiful lines, coming back to the beginning of the lecture. Nietzsche, yeah. So if you would like to know a little bit more about the duality between Apollo and Dionysus, you should read The Birth of Tragedy. It's beautiful, beautiful. That was the first book that he wrote, just like this. So I'm just wrapping up now. In this lecture, basically what we have tried to understand is how humanity looked for some answers to some of our biggest questions, yeah, like what are our beginnings, what is our place in the cosmos, why are we the way we are, and how do we interact with these forces, yeah. I would like in the next lecture to start digging in the answers to these questions, yeah, and for example start discussing the Greek story of the beginning of the world, like the Greek cosmogony. Yes, that's pretty much it. Everything I wanted to say. Hope you like this. And yes, and now we can speak if you have any questions, you have any criticisms, whatever.